On this episode of WarDocs, we discuss the Health Professions Scholarship Program, HPSP, which fully funds medical school for future military physicians. Our subject matter experts are Army Lieutenant Colonel Mary Alice Noel, a board-certified family physician who serves as the Army Medical Corps Recruiting Integration Officer, Navy Captain Shauna F. O'Sullivan, board-certified in internal medicine and rheumatology, who serves as a career planner and recruitment and retention lead for the Navy Bureau of Medicine and Surgery, and Air Force Colonel Brian Neubauer, board-certified in internal medicine and is currently the program director of the Internal Medicine Residency at the San Antonio Uniformed Services Health Education Consortium. Our SMEs share insights on the program's financial benefits, service commitments, and diverse career paths. The discussion highlights unique training opportunities across Navy, Air Force, and Army medicine. They also explore graduate medical education, GME programs that prepare doctors for specialized roles. Listeners will discover the collaborative nature of military medicine and its rewarding experiences and understand some of the advantages of serving as a military physician. For further information about HPSP and our guest, check out the episode show notes, follow the links on the screen, and visit our website at wardocspodcast.com. Be sure to follow WarDocs on your preferred podcast platform and subscribe to our WarDocs YouTube channel. I'm Doug Soderdahl, retired Army urologist. This episode is hosted by retired Army Major General and family physician Jeff Clark.
Welcome to WarDocs, the military medicine podcast. This show brings you a first-hand, behind-the-scenes look into the mission, unique opportunities, and deployed experiences of the entire military healthcare team. From state-of-the-art hospitals in the United States to the most austere environments across the globe, WarDocs has you covered.
Welcome to WarDocs. I'm your host, Major General Retired Jeff Clark, and in this episode, we'll provide an overview of the Health Professions Scholarship Program, HPSP. And our three guests for this episode, better stated, our three subject matter experts are Captain Shauna O'Sullivan, U.S. Navy physician, Colonel Brian Neubauer, U.S. Air Force physician, and Lieutenant Colonel Mary Alice Noel, who is a U.S. Army physician. These medical corps officers will provide an overview of the HPSP scholarship intended for pre-medical students, for colleges and universities that have students that are applying to medical school, medical schools themselves, military medical recruiters, or anyone else who wants to learn more about HPSP and serving as a military physician. Before we begin this episode, which is specifically for HPSP and more specifically for those going to medical school, you should be aware of the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences School of Medicine, which is in Bethesda, Maryland. It's a truly outstanding medical school and another great option for those who want to go to medical school, have their really all their costs covered, and go on to serve as a military physician. So I'll provide a brief overview, and then we'll turn it over to our subject matter expert for the details. So the Health Professions Scholarship Program, or HPSP, was established by Congress in federal law in 1972. And this specifically states for students accepted to or enrolled in an accredited training program leading to a health profession degree in medicine, dentistry, or other health profession specialties. The HPSP scholarship offered is the same for the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. The benefits and obligations are the same. One small difference is our Navy and our Air Force offer 4-year, 3-year, and 2-year scholarships. The Army offers 4-year, 3-year, and 2-year scholarships, but also offers a 1-year scholarship option. Just briefly for the benefits, there is an accession or sign-on bonus of $20,000. The scholarship covers full tuition of the medical school that's paid directly to the medical school. Reimbursement is provided for books and required equipment. There is a monthly stipend, living allowance, if you will, of $2,870 a month. And in addition, there's opportunities for active duty for training, in which the student actually goes on active duty for 45 days at a time each of the years. And in the third and fourth year is an opportunity to go and spend time at a military hospital, do a clinical rotation, and spend time with the residency and the specialty that you're interested in becoming part of. And so now let's get to the benefits. Dr. O'Sullivan, I know you attended medical school on an HPSP scholarship. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits of that scholarship?
Thanks, Jeff. So, as you mentioned, I'm an HPSP scholarship recipient. I was able to get the 4-year scholarship. I always like to start with the why I chose HPSP. And so for me, it was all about financial freedom. And so some of the items that Jeff has already mentioned, I'm going to highlight again. But as I was thinking about medical school and the cost of medical school, I really did not want to start my adult life in debt. And so once I got accepted to medical school, I started looking at the opportunities that were out there. And so the Navy HPSP scholarship was the scholarship that I wanted to go after. And I applied for the HPSP scholarship. And there's lots of different things related to that. But what I really want to focus on is that the HPSP scholarship pays for the tuition of any medical school that you get into. I can't emphasize that enough. So it could be the most expensive medical school in the United States. And if you get accepted for the HPSP scholarship, your tuition will be paid. And I think that that's key because, as Jeff mentioned, the service branches will directly reach out to the school and start paying your tuition. I think the other thing that I want to highlight, which is the monthly stipend. So when you're going to medical school, and Colonel Neubauer will talk about this a little bit more in detail, but your focus is really to be the best medical student you can be. And so when you're thinking about how am I going to pay for groceries, how am I going to do X, Y, and Z, you get a monthly stipend to pay rent, to get groceries. And that $2,870 right now in 2025 is a pretty decent amount of monthly income coming in. That is caveated by the fact that it's over 10 and a half months. So you get that stipend for 10 and a half months. And I'll get into that in just a second as to why that is. But once you sign your agreement and your benefit start date, your payments begin. And you get paid on the 1st and the 15th. And for all of us on active duty, we are very used to the 1st and the 15th. And so you'll get used to that as you come on active duty too. The other thing about HPSP, and I was sort of lamenting or laughing at my own self about this, but when Jeff mentioned it reimburses your required books and equipment, well, back in the day, I remember getting the HPSP to reimburse my doctor bag. I know we don't have those anymore. It's not as cool now, but I remember getting my stethoscope paid for, and I didn't have to pay out of pocket for that. And so I think that that's like one of the benefits of the HPSP program. The other benefit, as Jeff mentioned, is that over the course of that year, so 10 and a half months, you get that stipend, and then 45 days, or the other 1.5 months, really roughly, of the year, that you can do the annual active duty training. So you can receive active duty pay and benefits of a second lieutenant for the Army and the Air Force, and as an ensign in the Navy. And that includes O1 or Officer 1 pay, plus basic assistant housing and basic assistant subsistence, which is basically a food allowance. That's a lot of words, but we in the Navy, in the military, in the services use BAH and BAS to sort of as acronyms related to that. So if you take the scholarship and you say that I'm going to sign that accession bonus, you're going to get $20,000, right? You're just going to get that $20,000. We do anticipate that may increase for the services in the future, just like the monthly stipend may increase over the next couple of years. That stipend of the $2,870 is covered over 10 and a half months. So if you look at the picture, you're going to see that you roughly make $30,100 a month or a year, excuse me. when you get paid for the annual active duty training time, so you're O1, second lieutenant or ensign, as I've talked about, you're going to get that base pay. And typically, because your number of years of service is going to be less, so we think about years of service of 2, 3, and 4 years roughly. You'll be roughly around 2 years of service at that time in the active reserves. But when you do this annual duty training, you'll be on active duty, and you'll get paid for that. And that's over the course of 1.5 months. And that pay is roughly $6,000 if you do it based on today's financial status. The BAH is based on your location. So in this example, I'm Navy, so we chose Norfolk. So the BAH, or that housing allowance, is covered over that 1.5 months, and it's roughly $3,500. And then we have that BAS, which is very consistent across all the services at roughly $320, or over 1.5 months is $481. So when you think about what you would make in a year going to medical school, being the best medical student you can be so that you can be the best physician you can be, you're roughly making $40,000 a year. And so I'm going to highlight the benefits and the compensation benefits related to the HPSP scholarship that I took advantage of. But I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Neubauer, because he's an HPSP recipient as well. And he's going to tell us what it's really like to be an HPSP medical student and some of the advantages that you can have while going to medical school on the HPSP scholarship.
Thank you, Shauna. Yes, I also was an HPSP scholarship recipient. I had a 4-year scholarship, and I think that was one of the best decisions I made in my life. My wife and I had one child when I started medical school, and a second child during medical school, and the scholarship provided critical stability for our family and helped us get through that. And I do still carry my black HPSP doctor's bag. In fact, I took it to clinic this morning and received a compliment, at least what I think was a compliment, in the hallway on the way to clinic. So it's a gift that is still giving for me. I think one question a lot of folks have who may be considering this scholarship is, what is it going to be like when I'm in medical school as a military medical student? And the short answer to that is, you're going to look and feel the same as any of your classmates in your civilian medical school. You're not going to be wearing a military uniform from day to day. You won't be asked to perform physical fitness tests or anything along those lines. And you're not going to have to do any specific online or weekend training like you might hear about folks who are in the Guard or the Reserve for that matter. Your only goal during the HPSP medical school phase is performing as best as you can in medical school. I think we've heard this already from a few of the participants in this podcast, and I think we'll continue to hear this. The emphasis from each of the services at this time is for you to become the best physician that you can be. And the financial support, as well as some of the other opportunities that the scholarship provides, really helps you to achieve that potential. So is there any involvement with the military during HPSP? And the short answer to that is yes. And it comes in the form of these paid active duty trainings that Shauna was just speaking about. As a general principle, you are authorized one such training per year of scholarship. And I'll speak to what that looks like for somebody who's going through the full 4 years of the HPSP scholarship. That first active duty training is typically spent in officer training school. And the name of that training platform might vary by service, but the concept is essentially the same. We're talking about 4 to 6 weeks of training of how to be an officer in the military. When I did mine at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, I learned what the Air Force was, what its mission is, what its principles and core values are. I learned how to properly wear a military uniform. I learned about all of the customs and courtesies that exist in our Air Force and in our military in general. So it was a wonderful introduction to the military and something that I helped to relieve a lot of anxiety about when I might be on one of those future active duty trainings at a military location. The second year of your active duty trainings is typically done at your school. And you might be using that to prepare to take a USMLE or a COMLEX examination. That's kind of the most common way that second year of ADT trainings is used. The third and fourth year for active duty trainings are primarily intended for you to complete clinical rotations. And because as an HPSP student, you'll be participating in the military match, this is a critically important time for you, not only to potentially explore a specialty of interest for residency, but also get a firsthand look at what the various military locations that are available to you in that specialty are. And this is a chance for those programs to learn about you. If you may be applying to them, it's a great opportunity to learn more about each other. I want to transition and talk a little bit about some of the other opportunities that are available to you as an HPSP student. Really highlighted the officer training and the active duty training opportunities. And when you're going to those active duty opportunities in the military setting, I think there is one key distinction to make, and that is, as Shauna alluded to when reviewing the financial compensation, you are on active duty during these rotations at a military hospital. And so during that period of time, you will be wearing your service uniform or scrubs, whatever is the appropriate uniform of the day at that institution, and you'll be taking full part of the training opportunities in that setting. So now that we've discussed some of the basics of an HPSP scholarship, I'd like to turn the table over to Mary Alice, who will talk a little bit more about what the obligations of being an HPSP student are.
Thanks so much, Brian. So for a general role in the military, if the Army or the Navy or the Air Force pays for you to get training, then you're going to owe time. And so if you take the 4-year scholarship for the health professions, you're going to then owe 4 years after your residency training, or it's going to be 1 year less than the length of your residency training. You will have gotten the scholarship, you will have gotten tuition paid for, the stipend, the $20,000, and then you will pay back that time. And then you'll also have in your contract 4 years of inactive reserve time, which a lot of people don't understand. The inactive reserve is basically your name on a roster. If something like World War III happens, you might get called off that roster, but you will not owe anything to the military during that additional time. And then eventually you come off of that and you won't have any additional training or deployments during that time. If you have any other type of service obligation, whether you went to a service academy or you did ROTC, then you will pay back that time after the completion of your HPSP obligation. That's going to be a consecutive obligation, meaning that you're not going to be able to pay back your HPSP and your ROTC or academy time at the same time.
Mary Alice, thanks for that. So basically, it's 1 year of obligation for each year of scholarship, and your obligation begins following your residency. Did I get that right?
Yep, that's correct.
All right. And so then following medical school, there are benefits of being a medical corps officer, an officer in the Army, Navy, or Air Force while you are a resident. Can you tell us a little bit about the residency benefits of being in a military residency?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the benefits is that you're going to look to your left and your right at your colleagues who are in civilian residency programs. You're making about $90,000 up to $100,000 a year, maybe more depending on your year of training. And that can be a huge benefit. You're also getting full insurance coverage for you and your family. You're not getting copays. Your fees for medical services are quite low, if anything at all. And that coverage will be anywhere you are located. You also don't pay any type of malpractice insurance. You also get 30 days of paid leave annually. So your ability to take vacation and leave, you can do that on your leave eligible rotations during residency, but you get those 30 days that you get to take every year. If you don't use all of them, they roll into the next year. And so that's a great benefit as well, to have paid leave. And speaking of paid leave, if for some reason you had appendicitis during your residency training and your active duty, you would be out for a amount of time recovering from your convalescent leave. That is unlimited sick leave. So the Army does not cap you at a certain amount of sick days. And so you're able to recover and completely from whatever happened. And then you're getting to go back to work and you haven't burned any of your vacation time. Another great benefit is that if you decide to start your family or have children during residency or while you're active duty, there are excellent parental leave policies in place. So for the mother of the child, you're going to get 18 weeks of paid leave, which is incredible. When I started having kids in my second year of residency, it was 6 weeks. And so now it's up to 18 weeks, which is an incredible time for bonding. And it's not rest, that's not a break. You're certainly working very hard to take care of a new little person, but you get that time, which is excellent also for establishing breastfeeding. And then when you go back to work, there's actually established Army breastfeeding policies and across the Department of Defense to allow you to have time to pump and to be able to take care of your child that way as well. If your spouse has a child and you're on active duty, you also get 12 paid weeks of leave. You can take that either in one big chunk or you can take that out over the course of a year. And so those are tremendous benefits that I haven't found any other civilian residency programs that offer that, but that's certainly helpful.
Yeah, Mary Alice, thanks. On a sort of a personal note, my son and his wife are currently residents in a U.S. Army residency, and they just had their first child. And so, in addition to the income compensation that you mentioned, the fact that they are able to spend time as parents, time off of work, if you will, is absolutely priceless and much appreciated.
Yes.
So, Brian, you've served a couple of decades as an Air Force physician. What would you say are some of the benefits of serving as a physician in our military?
Well, Jeff, I think one of the greatest benefits about serving as a physician in the military is the fact that you have a fixed and stable income. And for the most part, you can predict what this income is going to be in future years. There's minor changes, there's cost of living increases and things along those lines, but your income primarily increases with the number of years of service that you have in the military, as well as with your promotion. So as you accrue military rank, your pay will commensurately increase. There are also specialty physician bonuses that are allotted to military physicians. They do vary based on your specialty, and those will start during residency. And then, as Shauna previously mentioned, there are several basic allowances, one of which is kind of a food allowance, which is pretty standard across the board, but the other is the housing allowance, and that varies by your geographic locale. For example, when I was a resident, I was stationed in San Antonio, and then after my first duty assignment there, moved up to Washington, D.C., and noticed that my housing allowance doubled. So that definitely varies by location and helps to defray those geographic expenses. We've already talked about some of the other benefits like the health and dental plan, and those are just key things for you and for your family if you have one. But what we haven't touched base too much upon yet is the retirement plan opportunities. The military currently offers a thrift savings plan with matching funds up to 5% that you can take advantage of in planning for your retirement. We've talked about some of the other benefits like the 30 days of paid vacation and the unlimited sick leave. A few of the other things that are important to focus on is number one, there's something called the GI Bill. And there's a couple versions of that, but the one that's currently used by incoming military members is what's called the post 9/11 GI Bill. And this has a couple of options for you that are really great. One is you can use the GI Bill yourself for future education or training. I've had colleagues over the years that have used their GI Bill to go back and get a master's degree. I have a current colleague who's going to culinary school, taking sort of a pause from medicine and using those benefits to pay for their culinary training. The other really great thing about the post 9/11 GI Bill is that, with some caveats, it has transferability to your dependents. And what that means is if you serve a minimum number of years and you elect to utilize this transferability, you could, for example, use your full GI benefits for your children. As a working example, in my case, I have 3 children, one of which is currently using my GI benefits to pay for school here in Texas. So it's a great benefit for military members. And I would say in my particular case, it's been worth well over $100,000 in value in helping to pay for her school. We've also mentioned the fact that there are no malpractice premiums. And there's other benefits too that, while may be smaller and not very important in the beginning, do take on value later on in training. Things like DEA licensing and reimbursement for board certification is an option for military service members as well.
So, Brian, I know you're a residency program director, and so I know you're very familiar with the military GME process. Could you just go over the basics of of our military GME and how that works?
Yes, of course. When I talk to prospective medical students who are considering the HPSP scholarship, this is one of the most common questions I get. What will GME be like? Will I be able to pursue the path that I would like to for myself? So let me try to explain that a little bit. The first thing to understand is the military runs its own graduate medical education match, just like the civilian match. The timing of that match is a little different. The military match occurs first. You will generally get those match results sometime in mid-December, whereas the civilian match is a little bit to the right. Those results typically occur in March. So as an HPSP student, you will enter the military match, and in many or even most cases, you will also enter the civilian match. And we can talk a little bit about why that is in a minute. The military match is run using a computer algorithm very similar to the civilian match. And I think one key thing to reassure everyone is that you are not forced to pursue or apply to a residency specialty that you're not interested in. You are allowed to apply for whatever residency area you would like to apply for and have the potential for being selected for training in that site. That selection is not guaranteed, of course. You will be competing not only with other medical students who are interested in that specialty, but also the number of positions available in that specialty from year to year in the military. But overall, the match rate across all three military services for specialty of choice in residency is quite high. 75 to 85% is the oft-quoted range based on the particular specialty. And I'd like to point out that that is right in line with where the civilian match is. You do have those paid opportunities to do your active duty tour during your third or fourth year of medical school, which gives you the advantage to experience the programs you may be interested in and gives them an opportunity to get to know you a little bit too, which can be a great advantage as you're going into the match for hopefully getting what you would like to have. With regards to civilian training, I briefly mentioned that a moment ago. Civilian training opportunities are going to vary based not only on the service, but also on the specialty. For some specialties, for example, I'll use my own internal medicine. From year to year, the number of trainees that participate in a civilian residency vary from 0 to over 10. And so just in the last few years, we did not send anybody to civilian training in the Air Force for internal medicine in last year's match, but we sent well over 10 2 years ago. And so there's some variables that are in play with that, but that's a general rule of thumb. Other specialties may be different, and there are certain residency programs that are trained exclusively in the civilian world. And so it really is particular to what specialty you are interested in.
So I think it would be helpful for those that are listening and watching to this WarDocs episode to hear some of the specifics of the respective services, Army, Navy, and Air Force medicine. And Captain O'Sullivan, why don't we begin with Navy medicine?
Everything that Colonel Neubauer mentioned about the match applies to all the services, as he already mentioned. And then, the specialty specific numbers do vary by the services and what their training opportunities will be. I think what I want to highlight is just a few of the Navy specifics. We have guaranteed specialty training and options. So all 100% of our medical students are selected for specialty training right out of medical school in 22 different specialties. 97% of our medical students match to their first or second choice. And compared to the civilian sector, the civilian sector is 47.7 roughly. Our residents and staff have an opportunity to train in over 112, actually 118 subspecialties. And our training sites vary. So we're roughly 80% military, which means a Navy graduate medical education program, and about 20% civilian. Now, going back to the 80% military, one thing that I want to highlight is that we have some large locations, such as San Diego, California, and Portsmouth, Virginia, as our training locations that are the largest. Portsmouth, Virginia is in the Virginia Beach area. I always like to highlight that Navy's always by water. But one of the other opportunities is a joint training environment, which is Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And that is a very large institution. And so Army, Air Force, and Navy will train in varied programs. And so Colonel Neubauer mentioned that he's an internist. Well, I'm an internist as well, and I did my training in San Diego, California, and I had an amazing opportunity there. But also, I'm a rheumatologist, and so the Army has an Army fellowship program, and the Army trained me as a Navy rheumatologist, and so there can be service-specific training opportunities, and there can be joint. And I think what I really wanted to foot stomp is those opportunities are vast amongst all the services. And so even though I'm wearing a Navy uniform, I connect with the Army. And so it's really all of us together to provide care to the people that are most deserving. I also wanted to highlight our streamlined path in graduate medical education. So 85% of our interns and residents are able to go straight through. We also label something called second chance opportunities. So if you're not initially selected for that first choice specialty, you can reapply after internship. The Navy has an additional 160 civilian and in-service training opportunities this year. So we're really enhancing our future residency and fellowship options. And we have, I don't think it was said before, but all the services, Army, Navy, and Air Force have a significant proven success. So on our board's pass rate, we're at the 96th percentile, which far exceeds the civilian sector. So I only highlight that because the training that you get in the services is quite phenomenal.
Shauna, thank you for that, and thank you for emphasizing the fact that we are one team. We're all in military medicine. We're all on the same team, and as you point out, our residencies are absolutely superb. I know the Navy has some great job opportunities. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so I get really excited about this. So this is where the services are probably going to leverage themselves to talk about why we're better, although we love each other the same. But I always like to talk about the really unique opportunities in Navy medicine. And so we always like to say in Navy medicine, we're below the water, we're on the water, we're on land, we're in the air, and we're in space. And so it's incredibly diverse. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the diversity of experience. So all those things below the water. Well, what do I mean by that? So our physicians can be undersea medicine experts. So they can learn to be a Navy diver. They can be diving medical officers, submarine medical officers. We even have hyperbaric medicine fellowships. So you can be a hyperbaric medicine expert in the Navy. We have aviation medicine. So I know some of the other services have that as well, but we actually teach our physicians how to fly. They're with the same class of aviators in Pensacola, Florida, learning how to fly. Now, they're not flying F-18s or F-16s, but they do learn how to fly. And then so they become flight surgeons. We have an aerospace medicine residency. We're one of the few in the country. So there's approximately 4 or 5 in the country. And we also have NASA opportunities. So you can be an astronaut. I highlight that Lieutenant Commander Johnny Kim is right now in the International Space Station, and he's a Navy physician. So really cool opportunities. If you want to be serving along the few, the proud, the Marines, you can be with the Fleet Marine Force. If you want to do some surface medicine, and I chose to do that. So all the physicians who do these varied platforms can also earn a PIN. And so I have my surface PIN. So I'm a waterfront leader and a medical expert at sea. Those are the cool operational sort of platforms that I wanted to talk about, but really, we're also clinical and academic medicine leaders. So we want you to be develop leaders that will be experts in their field. As Colonel Neubauer is a program director in the Navy, we want to teach our next generation. So we have our academic medicine gurus and our program directors that we want to grow and develop. And then we're heavily into research. So be a medicine technology expert, develop new cutting edge medical technologies and treatment. And so I always say, why settle for ordinary, be extraordinary, and live a life of meaning, and come into the military. And on one of this, come into the Navy. And one of the slides, you're going to see the Navy medical mascot. So his name is Ozzy the Doctopus. And so, yes, physicians love our mascot.
Shauna, incredible opportunities. But what about deployments? What would a Navy physician expect to do on a deployment?
Yeah, so one of the slides you'll see is a pictorial of like land, sea, and air, and we kind of have this mantra, "Hey, Navy medicine, where's your office?" And so I will say that our biggest thing for us is ensuring health and readiness to all of our service members, their beneficiaries, and retirees. So that's our core mission. But we really have diverse deployments. The length and location vary by specialty and unit. So if you're part of the Fleet Marine Force, you may have a deployment that is related to the Marines deployment. If you're on a ship, like I finished a deployment in 2022. I was on one of the ships for a few months. I got to see the world, though. It was phenomenal. But really, when we're talking about deployments, we're really providing medical support across all operational and humanitarian missions worldwide. So it's our care in action. And we participate in global partnerships like the other services, which is we strengthen our skills through joint training with international teams. So our deployments really can vary across the board. And I will say that for many of you, you may have some fears related to this, but I don't really know too many physicians across all services that have been deployed that do not have an amazing experience. And it's sometimes hard, but I don't know any other rheumatologists that can have the sort of experience that I've had. And I've been able to do it over the course of my career. And it's one of the things that I think really is unique about the services and also Navy medicine.
Any of us who have deployed have had very similar experiences, what you just expressed. It turns into a remarkable opportunity. So Air Force medicine, specifics thereof. Colonel Neubauer, would you begin by telling us a little bit about Air Force GME?
Overall, Air Force residency training occurs roughly in a 75 to 25% split. 75% of our residents will be training in a military residency program and about 25% in a civilian program. And as I mentioned before, there's some specialty differences to that. When you apply to the military match, hopefully, and with a high chance of success, like we were talking about before, you'll be able to match into your specialty of choice. But if that's not the case, then the question is, well, what would happen to us next? And I think in all of our services, you have the opportunity. Everyone is going to get a chance to complete an intern year. Nobody is turned away from the match. And there's some flexibility in that intern year. So you may choose to complete a transitional year internship, which will give you a broad base of experience in a lot of different areas of adult and pediatric medicine. Or at least in the Air Force, you can choose to complete a preliminary year of internship in either internal medicine or general surgery. And then after that initial year of internship, you can choose either to reapply to residency, or you can choose to serve in the field, if you will, as what we call a general medical officer or a flight surgeon. Very similar to what Shauna was describing in the Navy, and I'm sure you'll hear about this in the Army as well. The Air Force has many partnerships with civilian programs. In just internal medicine alone, of our 4 Air Force internal medicine residencies, 2 of them are fully joint with civilian partners. And that provides a wealth of additional opportunities to our military service members. We also have joint programs with our sister services. So, for example, the program that I lead here in San Antonio is a joint Army Air Force training platform for internal medicine. Many medical students may be wondering what their prospects are for training in a subspecialty. And I think in all of our services, there is ample opportunity to do so. The Air Force has abundant fellowship opportunities in all specialties, including many subspecialty opportunities. So, maybe you want to be a cardiologist and maybe you want to further subspecialize in one of the many different areas of cardiology or in a similar specialty. There's many of those opportunities available, and training in those fellowships occurs in both our military platforms and in our civilian partnerships. There's a lot of opportunity for Air Force residents to participate in areas that have more of an Air Force operational focus. We just heard a wide variety of those opportunities in the Navy. For the Air Force, the primary opportunity is going to revolve around the aviation community, serving as a flight surgeon, taking care of the pilots and the other service members that support those operations and their families. The Navy has a lot of training locations around the water. The Air Force is a little more scattered, I would say. So our primary training platform is here in San Antonio, the flagship of military medicine. We also have significant training programs in Dayton, Ohio, and in California, and in Washington, D.C. as well. So lots of different places you can go to train as a resident in the Air Force.
So, Brian, I have many friends, good friends, that are serving in our Air Force. Could you tell us a little bit about what a future Air Force physician might expect to be doing?
Absolutely. I think, again, you're going to hear a similar theme here, that there are a wealth of opportunities for what you will do in practice in the Air Force. I've already mentioned fellowships, so you can choose to pursue those. Those can be medical fellowships. I really didn't highlight. There's a bunch of non-medical fellowships that you can participate in as well. We'll talk a little bit about that more in a few moments. In terms of other job opportunities, it really crosses the entire spectrum. And the Air Force organizes the physician career path in kind of four main categories. One is a clinical path, and that is what's probably most familiar to everybody, where you will be practicing in the field or the specialty of your choice in a wide variety of settings. For internal medicine, we have internists who are practicing in predominantly ambulatory locations and seeing clinic. We have internists who are providing what I would call traditional internal medicine services, whereas they operate as both hospitalists and ambulatory doctors. Our internists sometimes are responsible for the care of intensive care patients as well in a wide variety of locations. A second track available in the Air Force is the academic career track. That's the track that I have found myself on. And that gives you the opportunity to be an educator and a leader in medical education. In my 20-year career, I have spent half of that in graduate medical education, either as an associate or program director, and the other half in undergraduate medical education as a primary faculty member at the Uniformed Services University Medical School. And along the way, the military have provided me a free opportunity to earn a master's degree in health professions education to support my career path along the way. And I think that is a very common thing in military medicine, is a wide variety of opportunities provided to you in order to enhance and enrich your career or explore another option that you may not have been thinking of. The other two career pathways for Air Force physicians are the command pathway, which is where usually in the medical setting, you will learn and have experiences leading operational units in the Air Force, whether that be a clinic, whether that be a hospital, or whether that be in another environment. And the final one is what we call integrated operations. And this is kind of an umbrella term for a wide variety of experiences with a lot of similarities to what Shauna mentioned occurred in the Navy. These are often related to aviation. However, we also have a big footprint in space for the Air Force. There are special operators in the Air Force, as there are in all of the services, and there can be a medical component to that. And I think one of the things that are unique, and I'll mention this more when we talk about deployment opportunities, is unique to the Air Force is the Critical Care Air Transport Teams, or CAPT teams, whose mission is to, at a moment's notice, go anywhere in the world and retrieve an injured service member or a dependent and care for them en route back to another location here in the United States.
Yeah, Brian, thanks. And thanks for highlighting the CAT teams. I can tell you that they're truly amazing. They're essentially a surgical ICU or a medical ICU in the back of a C-17 that can travel for hours from different places and get folks to the care that they need. Is truly amazing. So what about Air Force deployments? Can you tell us a little bit about what an Air Force physician might do on a deployment?
The short answer is Air Force deployment opportunities are wide and varied. Both the location and the length of those deployments is going to vary a lot by specialty. Again, leveraging my own experience in the Air Force as an internist, we would typically deploy in what we refer to as a level 3 role. That refers to a field hospital. In my time in deployments, I provided both inpatient and intensive care in one of our large field hospitals in a combat operation environment. Other specialties like surgeons may do different things, and that can range from providing forward resuscitative care in a small team that may go out in more remote environments and provide direct care on the battlefield, all the way up to those field hospitals that I was referring to previously. We highlighted already the critical role of our air transport teams, and this is, I think, one of the most fun deployment environments that you can participate in if you're interested and trained to do so. Military deployments, as Shauna mentioned, are not all about combat operations. That's certainly a key element of that, but there's a lot of other opportunities that come up as deployments in the military. One of which are humanitarian assignments, and these occur around the globe and for a lot of different reasons. In my career, I have had several of these, mostly in South America, but of course they really occur anywhere. And these have been highly rewarding experiences, both for me personally and as an educator, helping my residents gain some experience in that environment. The other thing the military does is provide support to civilian institutions, and that can come in a lot of different flavors. I think most recently, many of us have either been deployed ourselves or have had colleagues deployed to civilian hospitals during the COVID-19 pandemic, which was a key role in supporting the nation's health during that very critical time. But also, there are other opportunities in the research realm for partnership with civilian entities or in leadership environments as well. So I think to summarize, there's really a wide range of deployment opportunities in the Air Force, and they will vary based on your specialty, but all of them are rewarding.
Yeah, so thanks. So we've heard from Navy medicine and heard a little bit about Air Force medicine. So now why don't we turn to Army medicine? And so, Colonel Noel, if you begin by talking a little bit about Army GME.
I will echo what my colleagues have said, that graduate medical education in the military is phenomenal. For the Army, we train most of our residents in military treatment facilities, in medical centers. 98% of our residents actually train within that military residency program. I've been faculty for the last 8 years, and I think that the environment in which you're growing up as a physician, you're also growing up as a medical officer. And so we provide mentorship and connections and resources for people wanting to pursue fellowships. And I think I can't say enough about the value of being in part of a military residency program, because the Army is also very small when it comes to the medical people, and across all the services. So we send about 2% out to the civilian side, also with the civilian partnerships or with civilian sponsored options. That may change as far as the number ratio over years, but we certainly offer a lot of different locations to train residents at. 2 of those have been mentioned: Walter Reed in Washington, D.C., as well as San Antonio, Texas. We also have large military medical centers that are primarily Army in Tacoma, Washington. We also have one in Honolulu, Hawaii. The Augusta, Georgia has a large medical center, Fayetteville, North Carolina, as well as El Paso, Texas. We also have some other community-based hospitals that you can train at as well. So I have a great map that I share with students when I talk to them that kind of shows all the different places where there are residency training options. And then there are over 100 fellowship opportunities. I don't think we've really mentioned this yet, but when you do a fellowship in the Army, like I said earlier, if you get trained by the Army, you owe time. So you do incur an ADSO if you do an obligation for time if you do a fellowship. But I have found that really rewarding. Colonel Neubauer earlier had mentioned that you can get trained outside of just doing a medical specialty. I had the opportunity to do a faculty development fellowship, and I had the choice of getting an MBA or an MPH. And so I took opportunity to do my MBA, which was certainly broadening for me, and really provided some excellent teaching for me as I moved on to different positions that I've been in the Army in my career. I also wanted to mention that we have options in residency to do additional training with the military. And so you have options to potentially do airborne training where you jump out of a perfectly good airplane. You can do the air assault course where you're rappelling out of a helicopter. You can do flight medicine course, which is 6 weeks down in Alabama. And those give you exposure to what your soldiers that you're leading are going to be training in as well. From a medical perspective, after you've jumped out of an airplane a few times, you certainly understand why they want you to do that when you're younger, because it's a lot of falling before you actually jump out of the perfectly good airplane. I also wanted to mention that, if you don't match, so the Army kind of our specialty, our statistic that we use is that 85% of our residents are going to get their specialty of choice. And then, if you don't get your specialty of choice, we also do what's called a SOAP, and this is across all services. So when the civilian side does the SOAP, where you don't match, that also happens in the military. And so you have an option to do a transitional year internship in the Army, or you get offered slots at residency programs that still might have not filled yet. And so that's a conversation you get to have. If you do a transitional year internship, you do get an opportunity to reapply for a PGY2 slot. And then if that doesn't work out, then you go do a GMO tour. Or in the Army, your general medical officer tours are typically as a unit doctor, where you're actually going to be taking care of soldiers in a primary care setting. You also have the opportunity to do flight medicine, where you're taking care of pilots and the soldiers assigned to an aviation unit.
Yeah, remarkable training opportunities in Army, Navy, and Air Force. And so the job opportunities as an Army physician.
So there are many job opportunities, as Colonel Neubauer and Captain O'Sullivan mentioned earlier. I like to break it out into the kind of the 4 tracks that the Army considers opportunities. So first is operational. And so that is kind of when you think about being in the Army and wearing the uniform and taking care of soldiers, this is where you have the opportunity to go out and take care of soldiers and work alongside them. You get to train medics. You're working with physician assistants, and you're working with commanders as well. You're representing your soldiers and their health, and you're helping prevent you're doing preventive medicine as well for that. This also includes some opportunities with special operations units. And so we train residents that sometimes go directly into these special operational roles, depending on their background, and they get an opportunity to work and embed within these special operations teams that go and do a lot of really amazing training. Their deployments are quite unique and all over the world. You can also train and serve with the Rangers and the Ranger Battalion, and the Ranger battalions as their physician. And then we also have a unit called the Security Forces Assistance Brigade, and that unit will be geographically located. And so I have several residents that have gone to train there, and they'll have brief deployments down in South America or in the Middle East, and really some really neat opportunities in the operational side. And I had mentioned earlier, being a flight surgeon is also an option in the Army. You're taking care of helicopter pilots, but that is also something you can do. Another realm you could work in is the academic realm. And so you can be part of faculty, and often associated with that is doing research. You have the opportunity to become an assistant professor with the Uniformed Services University. And like I took an advantage of doing the faculty development fellowship. There are different ways to continue to pursue an academic career. And then you can also do leadership. And so right out of the gate of residency, sometimes you're going to be put as an officer in charge of a clinic. And so you're learning about practice management, about the hiring of people, and how do you make a system in which patients can get access to care. So those clinical opportunities often are associated with leadership positions. And finally, you can also be involved in research. And so I want to tie back to a WarDocs episode in December of 2024 when they interviewed Major General McQueen, and he spoke about all the different places in the Army that we do research, and it's literally all over the world, including in Thailand. And so if you're a Prev Med officer, you can actually get a preventive medicine physician and an officer, you can actually get an opportunity to get stationed in Thailand, which is really amazing. And so I recommend going back and listening to that, because he definitely hit on the different opportunities there. Also in the research world, I know y'all recently interviewed Colonel Pamplin, who's in charge of TATRIC, and that is also some amazing things that they're doing there with research with AI. And so operational, academic, leadership, research, those are all opportunities that you have in the Army. And you can also we also have an opportunity to serve in those roles overseas. And so we have multiple assignments that you can do out of residency in Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Belgium. I have a resident who's in the Sinai right now, who had finished residency and is now a flight surgeon in the Sinai. So lots of cool things you get to do right out of residency.
So, Colonel Noel, could you tell us a little bit about what a physician in the Army might expect on a deployment?
My colleagues have touched on it that there are combat and non-combat deployments, and I think just based on where we are in the world, you could be put in either setting. You will primarily deploy with an Army unit, whether that is going to be you are the doctor for 500 soldiers or 3,500 soldiers, or the subject matter expert to that commander. You might be part of a forward surgical resuscitation detachment, and so those are trauma surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, ER doctors, anesthesiologists who will go into those remote locations that I think it was mentioned earlier. And that could be, again, all over the world. Those teams move around quickly and deftly in order to be able to take care of soldiers immediately after they get wounded. And then you also might be deployed with a hospital. And so that's where I was deployed in Iraq in an ER setting. It was a lot of tents put together, but we provided phenomenal care there. And you also get opportunities when you're in those non-combat deployments and in combat deployments to train with other countries. And so we have a lot of soldiers right now in Poland and Korea and in other countries who are working with their partner forces to do medical training and see how they do evacuation of their patients. And it's really amazing to see what other countries are up against with their challenges and be able to assist with that and also learn from them. So there's also, I think Colonel Neubauer had mentioned humanitarian opportunities. And so depending on where you are, what specialty you are, you might get opportunities to do humanitarian type deployments as well. We're going to help in the United States as well as outside of the United States for national disasters and different things like that. So there could be a breadth of opportunities to deploy, and the length of deployments will also vary. I recommend speaking with someone who's done it and kind of hearing their stories as well.
So thanks to each of you, and as everyone's had a chance to hear, HPSP is scholarship is a great opportunity for covering the cost, essentially all the cost of medical school training and great programs, and going on to do some really exciting, rewarding work as a physician is truly amazing. I'll just share with you on a personal note. The Army ROTC program paid for my college. HPSP paid for my medical school. I had no debts, no financial debts. I did owe time, as has been described. But I will share with you, as Brian and Shauna and Mary Alice have, is that the time, my payback time, as it were, was fun. It was rewarding. I worked with some absolutely remarkable medical professionals, and I got to serve in our military, which was very, very special. So as we wrap up our episode on HPSP, why don't we get a couple of final comments from each of our guests, and Dr. O'Sullivan, final thoughts?
Thanks, Jeff. So one, I really appreciate being part of this podcast. I think I'm going to echo probably what you all are going to say as well. But I think when I think about HPSP specifically for me, it provided me a financial freedom that I'm incredibly grateful for. And I think when you're going through your wanting to be a physician, you have a higher calling to take care of others. And what I have found in Navy medicine and military medicine, because again, I think it's all one team, is that your call to serve is even greater because you're taking care of the service members, their sons, daughters, sometimes moms, dads, parents, and retirees. And it's afforded me an opportunity to give back. And I think when you add being a physician and your call to serve, and then being able to give back and have a higher purpose and meaning, that every day I wake up and I'm grateful to be wearing the uniform. And I mean that across, all services. I mean, we were I was chuckling about some of the sites that Mary Alice just mentioned. And I'm thinking, well, Navy has Rota, Spain, and Italy too. And we have leadership opportunities, but it's really the collective whole of us together taking care of the people who have signed up for the call of duty. And I owe everything, quite frankly, to Navy medicine. And so when I retire this uniform, I'm going to still practice, and I know I'm going to be one of the best rheumatologists in whatever area I'm going to be. And that's because of the Navy. And then I was a leader because the Navy taught me how to be a leader. So I think that's what I'm going to close with. HPSP is a wonderful opportunity, regardless of which service you decide to choose. Obviously, we want you to go Navy. Air Force is going to want Air Force to go Air Force. And Army is going to want you to go Army, but we're all one team, one fight. So look forward to seeing you in the fleet, and can't wait to see you grow as physicians in military medicine. Thanks.
Dr. Neubauer, your thoughts?
I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to talk about the HPSP program, because similar to Shauna, this was really life-changing for me as well. Just a wonderful career in a wide variety of areas. And I too feel very well prepared to excel and be a leader in American medicine when I too decide to retire. I think it's important to recognize military service may not be for everyone out there. And only you can decide if military medicine is the right fit for you. But I think, as you've heard today, it is a great option to consider. And I really hope that you do so. In my own personal career, as you mentioned, Jeff, I have been blessed to work on a consistent basis with just an amazing group of people. And as we've all talked about so far, towards a shared mission. And that shared mission has purpose. And because of that, it delivers great meaning for those of us, whether we stay in for just the length of our initial commitment or we decide to make a career out of it. It's just a wonderful thing to be a part of. When I was an HPSP student, my initial plans were to complete my 4-year service commitment and then get out of the military and go on and do whatever I was going to go on and do. And I've had that opportunity 4 times now over my career. And each time that opportunity has arisen, I've sat down and strongly considered what I want to do and what all the options are. And each time I've elected on my own choice to stay in the Air Force. And I think it's because of all those things: outstanding people, a great mission that brings a lot of meaning, a wide range of opportunities. And it's just been a wonderful career. And so I'd strongly encourage everybody to consider that. Talk to folks, ask questions if you're unsure. But don't deprive yourself of the opportunity if that's something you think you might be a good fit for.
Yeah, Brian, well said. And Colonel Noel, your final thoughts, please.
I think it's all about the people. I think you will never meet another group of people who are focused on the mission and really excited about taking care of soldiers, of service members. And the people that I've met on my journey have really impacted my career. You get that mentorship, and you might end up doing something you didn't expect to do. I would have never told you I would have gotten an MBA. I would have never told you that I would have ended up in Baghdad serving in the ER in a tent. But through the opportunities that the military has provided, it's really shaped me for who I am. And I'm ever grateful for people who have gone ahead of me. And my brother serves, my parents served, and they're all serving to make this world a better place. And so it's just been a tremendous honor to care for everyone from newborn babies to the older retiree population. It's really been amazing to be part of their story as they've given to the country. That less than 1% that volunteer to serve to serve their country in defense of our nation. I think that when you get opportunities to do hard things, you grow as a person. And so whether that, again, is jumping out of an airplane or stepping foot into a hot, sandy place or jungles or wherever that might be, when you're stressed in those capacities, you really learn a lot about yourself. And I think it makes you a better human. For those who are thinking about, how am I going to get employed by the military after I've served? I'll tell you that military physicians are highly employable. We know how to follow the rules. We have a great work ethic, and we understand teamwork. And so I've seen many of my colleagues who fulfill their obligation and then go pursue a civilian fellowship, or they become leaders. There are many, many military officers out there that are chief medical officers and leaders in research and leading medicine in the country. And so it's a great opportunity. I'm always happy to talk to anybody about my experiences. In my current job, I speak speak to people on a daily basis about my experiences, the match, and other aspects. So make sure you reach out to a medical recruiter if you have heard this and you're interested. I think we'll have links to all of those websites, but a medical recruiter for all the services is going to get you to where you can take advantage of the HPSP scholarship.
So thank you, and we'll post that information so the audience, anyone has more questions, can get the links that they need to find more information. So let's close by Colonel Neubauer and Captain O'Sullivan and Lieutenant Colonel Noel. Thank you very much for providing your expertise on this episode of WarDocs, our HPSP overview. We also thank you for your service to our nation, for wearing the uniform that you do so proudly. And I'll also say a special thank you to your families for what they do. And as I've heard it said, and I feel compelled to say it again, there is no greater patriot than the family of an American service member. So thank you for what you do, and thank your families for what you do. I'll ask folks to please visit our WarDocs website at wardocspodcast.com to view our guests' full bios and see pictures during their career. And I'll ask you to also, while you're there, to check out WarDocs. We have over 220 episodes available on podcast and on YouTube, and that tell the story and capture the legacy of military medicine. And so to each and every one of you, be safe and may God bless.
Thank you for listening to WarDocs. We sure hope you enjoyed it. WarDocs is a nonprofit organization supported by donations from listeners like you. Please follow and subscribe to our show on whatever platform you consume your podcasts, and rate and review this episode, and share the show with your contacts on social media. Find out more information about our show, our guests, and how to become a member of Team WarDocs on wardocspodcast.com. Thank you for your support. If you like war stories and medical drama, WarDocs has you covered. Spread the word.